Hello, incredible listeners, you are powerful, brilliant, and unstoppable. And today's story will prove just that. Picture this: you've built your life, your career, your marriage, only to have it all shattered in an instant. Not by fate, but by the ultimate betrayal. This is the story of Olivia Bennett, who was torn apart by the lies of those closest to her. But instead of falling, she rose with fire, using patience, strategy, and pure determination to take control of her destiny. This is a heart-pounding tale of deception, revenge, and ultimate victory, where the best revenge isn't destruction, it's coming out on top. Stick with me as we unravel Olivia's journey from betrayal to redemption. Let's dive in. The anniversary celebration at the prestigious Whitmore Country Club was supposed to be a night of elegance and joy, a testament to 10 years of marriage, success, and partnership. Olivia Bennett stood beside her husband, Ethan, in a shimmering navy gown, raising a toast to the life they had built together. The room buzzed with laughter and the clinking of champagne glasses as their closest friends, family, and business associates gathered to celebrate. But in a single moment, the warmth of the evening turned ice cold. Ethan cleared his throat, his expression darkening as he suddenly placed his glass down with a force that made the crystal shudder. "I can't do this anymore," he announced, his voice thick with supposed pain. A hush fell over the room. Olivia turned to him, confused, as a sinking dread spread through her chest. "What are you talking about?" she asked, forcing a smile, hoping this was some elaborate joke. Ethan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his neatly styled hair, as if the weight of the truth was unbearable. "I didn't want to believe it," he said, shaking his head, "but the proof is right here." He pulled his phone from his pocket and turned the screen toward the crowd. Gasps echoed through the hall as he swiped through a series of text messages Olivia had never seen before. Messages that suggested she had been having an affair with a colleague for months. The room spun. Olivia's stomach twisted as she tried to process what was happening. "Ethan, this isn't real," she stammered, stepping toward him, but he flinched back as if her touch would burn him. "Don't lie, Olivia," he said coldly. "I've seen the receipts, the hotel bookings, the emails." Margaret Bennett, her mother-in-law, let out a sharp cry, clutching her pearls. Charles Bennett's face turned red with barely restrained fury. Olivia turned in desperation to her best friend, Lisa, who had been her maid of honor. But Lisa wouldn't meet her eyes. The betrayal felt like a blade to her chest. "Pack your things." Ethan's voice sliced through the chaos. "You're not coming home tonight." The finality in his tone sent a chill down Olivia's spine. As the murmurs of disgust and whispers spread, she realized she had lost more than just her marriage in that moment. She had lost everything. The drive to her new reality was a blur. Olivia barely remembered how she ended up outside a small, dimly lit apartment complex on the outskirts of Manhattan, gripping the single suitcase Ethan had allowed her to take. Just days ago, she had lived in a sprawling penthouse overlooking Central Park. But now she stood in front of a cramped one-bedroom unit with peeling paint and a door that stuck when she tried to push it open. She sank onto the tiny bed, the weight of the night crashing over her. The fallout had been swift and merciless. Ethan had frozen their joint accounts, cutting her off from the wealth they had built together. Calls to her bank were met with cold refusals. Her name had been removed from nearly every asset. When she tried to access her credit cards, they were already cancelled. Her attorney, a sharp but sympathetic woman named Laura Green, laid out the brutal truth. Ethan had been planning this for months. The evidence against her had been carefully constructed, the legal groundwork meticulously laid. If the divorce went forward as it stood, Olivia would walk away with nothing. The betrayal extended beyond finances. Her social circle, once filled with powerful friends and business acquaintances, had shrunk overnight. Some sent polite messages of sympathy, but most had already taken Ethan's side. Even her colleagues at Carter & Wells, the investment firm where she had built her career, whispered when she walked into the office. By the end of the week, Auer called her in. Her position had been reevaluated, and she was let go under the guise of company restructuring. She had lost her home, her career, and her reputation. Ethan had taken everything, or so he thought. For days, Olivia barely functioned. She spent hours staring at her laptop, trying to make sense of the nightmare her life had become. But then, as she combed through old financial records, ones she still had access to, something caught her eye. A name she hadn't thought about in years, James Thornton. Ethan had mentioned him once, dismissively, as some old fool who didn't know when to let go. But Olivia knew better. Thornton had been one of Bennett Capital's earliest investors, a man with deep industry knowledge and, more importantly, a history with Ethan. Digging deeper, she found an old article featuring Thornton, dated nearly a decade ago. He wasn't just an investor, he had been the original architect of Bennett Capital's investment model. Olivia's heart pounded as she read between the lines. Ethan hadn't built his empire alone. He had learned from Thornton, then pushed him out, and now, just like before, he was erasing someone who had helped him succeed. Determined, Olivia tracked Thornton down to his secluded estate in the Hamptons. The house was modest, despite his past wealth, and when he answered the door, his sharp eyes studied her with suspicion. "You're Ethan's wife," he said, voice laced with bitterness. "Ex-wife. Soon enough," she corrected, lifting her chin. "And I think you know why I'm here." For a long moment, Thornton said nothing. Then, with a knowing sigh, he stepped aside. "Come in," he said. "We have much to discuss." Over steaming cups of coffee, Olivia laid everything out: Ethan's betrayal, the fabricated evidence, the financial deception. Thornton listened intently, nodding at the right moments. When she finished, he set his cup down and leaned forward. "You're right," he said. "Ethan didn't just betray you. He stole from me, too." He tapped his fingers on the table, eyes gleaming with something Olivia recognized: strategy, calculation, the hunger for justice. "You want revenge?" he asked. "I can help you, but we don't just take him down." Olivia met his gaze, steel in her spine. "We destroy him." Olivia and James spent the next several weeks piecing together the truth, methodically unraveling the empire Ethan had so carefully constructed. Using her expertise in forensic accounting, Olivia combed through Bennett Capital's financial records, uncovering a web of hidden accounts, misreported assets, and questionable transactions. It didn't take long to find what they needed: proof that Ethan had been manipulating investments, laundering money through shell corporations, and inflating the company's value in preparation for the upcoming IPO. But financial fraud wasn't enough. Olivia needed to clear her name, too. Rachel Lawson, Ethan's former assistant, provided the missing puzzle piece. Fired under vague circumstances just a few months prior, Rachel had seen more than she was supposed to. She had access to confidential emails, records of payments made to a digital forensics firm, and most damning of all, correspondence detailing how Ethan had orchestrated the fake affair to frame Olivia. She agreed to testify in exchange for legal protection, finally giving Olivia what she needed: undeniable proof that Ethan had set her up. With evidence in hand, Olivia and James formulated a two-pronged attack: financial exposure. They would leak key documents to regulators and financial journalists, triggering an investigation into Bennett Capital's fraudulent practices just days before the IPO. Legal retaliation. Olivia's lawyer would present Rachel's testimony and forensic evidence in court, forcing the judge to reopen the divorce case and reverse the settlement. But timing was everything. If they moved too soon, Ethan could cover his tracks. If they waited too long, he would complete the IPO and secure his fortune. The perfect moment had to be when Bennett Capital was under the highest level of scrutiny, right before the stock went public. "The IPO is in 2 weeks," James reminded her as they finalized their plan. "That's when he'll be at his most vulnerable." Olivia nodded, her resolve stronger than ever. Ethan had stolen everything from her, thinking she was too broken to fight back. But he had underestimated her. And now, she was going to make him regret it. 2 weeks later, just 3 days before Bennett Capital's highly anticipated IPO, the first wave of destruction hit. Overnight, an anonymous tip to financial regulators and a bombshell exposé in a major business journal revealed allegations of fraud, money laundering, and financial misrepresentation at Bennett Capital. Within hours, the company's stock plummeted, investors panicked, and regulatory agencies announced a full-scale investigation. Ethan, once hailed as a financial genius, was suddenly under intense scrutiny. In his sleek Manhattan office, Ethan's phone rang nonstop. Board members demanded answers. Investors threatened to pull out. He barked orders at his legal team. But the evidence was too damning: bank records, emails, and shell companies all traced back to him. The media swarmed the building, speculating whether the IPO would be delayed or cancelled entirely. Then came the final blow. Sitting in a quiet cafe across from Bennett Capital's headquarters, Olivia watched as Ethan's name flashed across her phone. She let it ring twice before answering. "What the hell have you done?" Ethan's voice was hoarse, a mixture of rage and panic. She smiled, stirring her coffee. "Nothing compared to what you did." "Ethan, how does it feel, having everything you built come crashing down?" "You can't prove anything," he snapped. "This will blow over." "Oh, I wouldn't be so sure," Olivia said smoothly. "Check your email." A pause, then a sharp intake of breath as Ethan opened the folder she had just sent him, containing undeniable proof of his fraudulent activities. Fabricated affair accusations, and manipulated legal documents. His voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "What do you want?" "For you to come clean," Olivia said. "In court, publicly, confess to everything: the stolen money, the fake affair, the setup. And if I don't?" She laughed softly. "Then tomorrow morning, James Thornton and I go public with everything. And trust me, Ethan, prison will be the least of your worries." The silence on the other end was deafening. The next morning, Ethan stood before the Bennett Capital board, his face pale, his voice hollow. "I have an announcement to make," he said. The fallout was swift and brutal. Within hours of Ethan's public confession, Bennett Capital's IPO was cancelled indefinitely, and the board forced him to resign as CEO. Investors scrambled to distance themselves, and the company's stock collapsed overnight. Days later, federal investigators froze Ethan's assets and launched an official inquiry into the company's fraudulent activities. His once loyal allies disappeared, and the lavish life he had built on deception crumbled beneath him. For Olivia, justice didn't stop there. With Ethan's fraudulent evidence exposed in court, the divorce settlement was overturned. She regained her rightful share of the assets, including stakes in Bennett Capital. But the real victory came when the board, desperate to salvage the company's reputation, made her an unexpected offer: take over as CEO. Standing in the sleek office that once belonged to Ethan, Olivia gazed out over the New York City skyline, the weight of the moment settling over her. Just weeks ago, she had been stripped of everything: her home, her career, her dignity. Now, she was at the helm of the very empire Ethan had tried to steal for himself. James Thornton walked into the office, a small smile on his face. "Looks good on you," he said, gesturing toward the CEO's chair. Olivia exhaled, a slow, satisfied breath. "It should. I earned it." She had been cast aside, humiliated, left with nothing. Ethan had believed she was broken, but he had underestimated her resilience, her intelligence, and most of all, her ability to play the long game. Ethan had tried to destroy her. Instead, he had paved the way for her greatest success. A year later, Olivia stood before a packed auditorium at the Women's Leadership Summit, the spotlight casting a soft glow around her. The audience, rising executives, entrepreneurs, and professionals, watched in rapt attention as she delivered the keynote speech. "The hardest lesson I've learned," she began, "wasn't about finance or business. It was about betrayal, resilience, and patience. When someone tries to destroy you, they expect you to react immediately, emotionally, recklessly. But sometimes, the most powerful response is to wait, to observe, and to strike when they least expect it." Applause rippled through the crowd, but Olivia barely heard it. She thought back to that night at the country club. The whispers, the humiliation. Ethan had thought he was writing the end of her story. Instead, he had set the stage for something greater. Bennett Capital, now renamed Thornton Bennett Investments, had flourished under her leadership. With James Thornton by her side as an advisor, she had rebuilt the firm on a foundation of transparency and ethical investment strategies. Clients returned, trust was restored, and the company thrived in a way it never had under Ethan. As she stepped off the stage, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "You ruined me. I hope you're happy." She smiled. "Ethan, Once the powerful CEO who had orchestrated her downfall. He was now a disgraced fraudster. Stripped of his wealth, his reputation in ruins. Last she heard, he had moved to a small coastal town, trying to escape the mess he had created. Olivia typed back a simple response. No, Ethan, you ruined yourself. I just made sure the truth came out. Slipping her phone into her purse, she walked out of the auditorium, head held high. Her journey had been painful, but it had also been necessary. She had lost everything to betrayal but gained something far greater: power, wisdom, and freedom. Ethan had played the game to win at any cost. But in the end, it was Olivia who had truly won. The story of Olivia Bennett teaches a powerful lesson about resilience, patience, and the power of truth. When faced with betrayal and injustice, the instinct is to react immediately. But true victory comes from strategy and timing. Olivia didn't let anger consume her. Instead, she gathered evidence, built her case, and struck when it mattered most. She proved that success isn't about revenge, it's about reclaiming your power. No matter how carefully deception is crafted, the truth always finds its way to the surface. The key is having the strength to endure and the wisdom to act when the moment is right.